So good morning, distinguished guests, honorary speakers, experts, dear colleagues who is watching us on YouTube channel. On behalf of IAMPE, it's my great honor and sincere pleasure to welcome you today, the IAMPE Regional Webinar dedicated to today we have Lebanon. Thank you for all experts who came from Lebanon for accepting our invitation, from Cyprus, around the globe, from Brazil, from Ecuador, for joining us from different countries and the regions. Today we bring together lawyers, judges, mediators, academicians, business leaders, humanitarian professionals, and specialists in diplomacy and international cooperation. And not only. The webinar is it's not only an academic meeting, as you understood. It's a new format. It's a platform for honest dialogue, practical exchange, and maybe while we are exchanging our expertise, we can come to the answers on our main questions. So we will practical exchanges, we will develop of ideas that may contribute to Lebanese future, and not only, and regional stability, stronger cooperation between our countries. So IAMPE, we always believe that the peace is not created by chance, and it's built through dialogue, law, diplomacy, mediation, IDR, all the educations, and above all those, so people who choose cooperation instead of confrontation. The Lebanon has a unique history and strong intellectual and cultural traditions, and an important place in the Mediterranean and the wider region. All the same time, it continues to face legal, political, economical, humanitarian, and the social challenges. Today, we will not only discuss the challenges, but we will try to figure out how can we help each other. And I'm very grateful to all of the speakers for contributing their expertise today. I also thank our audience for being part of this international dialogue. It's now my honor to open today's international expert session. And we will start from the speakers one by one. I will give the floor to my colleague, Roland Abujaude. If you want something to say, please.
Good morning, everyone. First of all, I will thank Mrs. Christina for organizing this webinar, for her kind invitation to speak, and sincere appreciation to all the participants for joining this conference. From my part, I want to talk about the business resilience during global crisis. In general, worldwide, and I can come back in the end regarding Lebanon situation. So the business resilience during global crisis, over the past few years, we faced challenges that many of us never imagined. We experienced the COVID-19 pandemic, geopolitical conflicts, rising inflation, cyber attacks, climate-related disaster, and major disruption in global supply chains. These events affect organizations of every size in every industry. So today, the important question is no longer will another crisis happen? Instead, we should ask, is our business ready for the next crisis? Today, if we can focus on what business resilience means, what is essential, and how organizations can prepare themselves to survive and even grow during difficult time. So, however, resilience is about much more than simply surviving. It's mean learning from challenges, adapting to changes, becoming stronger, and building a business that can continue to succeed despite uncertainty. What type of global crisis, like we could have, like, let's say, the health crisis? The best example is COVID-19 pandemic. It caused lockdowns, employee shortage, remote working, and significant change in customer behavior. As well, the economic crisis, challenges such as recession, inflation, geopolitics conflicts, wars, political tensions, trade dispute, as well regarding the climate, which is something very important, climate change and not a natural disaster. Plus, now in this era, the cybersecurity threats, like today, cyber risks are among the fastest growing threats, like data breach, AI-powered cybercrime, and that cause financial losses, legal problem, and damage customer trust. So business resilience, it's now very important for the business, and the 5 pillars for business resilience. First, financial resilience, like the organization, company should maintain emergency funds, diversity their source of income, control operating, and ensure they have appropriate insurance coverage. The operational as well, companies should avoid relying on one single supplier. Digital resilience, technology has become one of the strongest foundation of resilience. So they should invest in cloud computing, cybersecurity, AI, etc. And now the most important, workforce resilience. Always investing in people, like the employee are an organization greatest asset, like how to face and to how to adapt to these changes. So there will be strategic resilience thinking. What we take from lessons from COVID-19, like first, organization must be able to adapt quickly about the digital transformation, about communication with employee, customer, must remain clear and transparent. Business should never depend entirely on a single supplier. And finally, supporting employee during difficult times improve both resilience and long-term performance. So there is big role of technology, but as well the leadership during a crisis. Even with excellent technology and planning, leadership remains the most important factor during a crisis, like how the leader stay calm under pressure, communicate honestly, how he take the decision in time, how to act with the employee. So the strong leadership often determines whether an organization struggle or succeed. Uh, how to build this business resilience? The organization, they have to follow these 5 practical steps. First, to identify the major risk facing the business. Second, assess the potential impact of each risk. Third, develop business continuity and disaster recovery plans. Fourth, test and update these plans regularly. Finally, learn from every crisis and continuously improve. So resilience is not one-time project, it's an ongoing process. The future trends will depend increasingly on several important areas like AI, data analytic, sustainable business practice, climate risk management, resilient supply chain, advanced cybersecurity. So organizations that prepare today will be better positioned to manage tomorrow challenge. I would like to leave with one quote. It's not the strongest or the smartest that survive, but the ones that can adapt to change. So this in general, globally. If I want to come now regarding Lebanon situation. Lebanon, as Mrs. Christina spoke, we have a long history, which I realized because I'm working with many investors. They don't know about the history of Lebanon. Lebanon, like the letter start from Lebanon. Even if I don't want to come to religion, just to putting the facts as it is. Jesus Christ made his first miracle in Lebanon. So Lebanon was the point between East and West. It was the Paris of Middle East. Unfortunately, we passed with many wars, which are not the Lebanese wars. It was always the wars of other in our land. We have a small country, but very rich in many cultures, many religion, and always we have like the bird, Phoenician bird, like every crisis, the Lebanese stand up and continue, even with the difficult time. So now the situation in Lebanon is not stable. Let's say what happened recently with the financial crisis, the people lost their money in the banks. Now in Lebanon, for example, all people deal in cash, not through the bank because they are afraid. But, and even let's say the European country and the West understand that, but now to be compliant with the law, everything must be transferred between the banks. So Lebanese are facing a very difficult situation now. I'm speaking now about even small thing about transfer with the banks. Also, like for the future, Lebanese people are living day by day, but they are adapting with the situation always, and they stand up because after this crisis, we had 2 wars, and in the end, we hope like to live with peace and like that we live one time without problem, economic, political, etc. So this, I spoke very brief about Lebanon, not to take the time of others, and we can make the conversation between each other.
Thank you very much. Just briefly wanted to
Thank you.
say just who was speaking, Mr. Roland Abu Jaude. His topic was business resilience during the global crisis. The short bio, just he's a Lebanese, the lawyer in the Bar Association of Lebanon, and he's a strategic advisor in the company Taj Advisor in the Larnaca. With experience in the business strategy, institutional development, and a lot of the fields. So just want to say thank you very much that you share briefly your vision. I know you have a lot of expertise. You want to share more that. And for this, your valuable and so provoking presentation. You have raised several the important points that are directly connected with today's discussion. With your permission, I would like to ask you at least one question, because we will move to another speakers, and we will see how we can debate at the end. This question is related and closer to our mission as an association. What do you think, how the role of diplomacy and the legal certainty and international cooperation without curtains, without waffles? Now we want to share what exactly we think and how this cooperation really play in supporting business resilience. Just share your thoughts and how it's happening in reality. This is what we want to listen. The people don't like to listen just this presentation about the philosophy, aside philosophy today.
Yes, regarding your question, Mrs. Christina, here always in each country they have to support the government have to have like the plan for such cases, even to advise the companies, because yes, like the country with its relation diplomacy, it can open door for these companies, the citizen, or to close door. Let's say the countries which they have sanctioned, now they cannot work with other countries, even the companies, the individual organization are affected. So regarding diplomacy, I always believe in diplomacy, it have big role. And if I want to speak like now in general, if we take it like no one of us choose his nationality, I will start with this, his color, his name, his religion. So in everywhere in the world, there is good and bad people. We focus always on the good, and always in any solution for government, for organization, on the positive side, and diplomacy can solve, I will not say everything, most of the thing with good understanding. So yes, in this way, when the government is open, it affects the organization and gives them the positive or the negative impact.
Yes, okay, that's great. Thank you very much. And now, what a single piece of advice will you give to business leaders from the Lebanon nowadays, in the days of the crisis, in the global crisis, and we are witnessing what's going on now in Lebanon?
Yes. The advice which I can share that all, of course, to focus on their business in the place where they are, but to extend to have always plan B, maybe to set up branches abroad in Cyprus or in any country, to have always plan B. Many of them, of course, have plan B, but to put all the point practical, in a practical way.
Okay, this week what we can give advice to the business society, but I think the individual just or people, they're just really surviving as well. But I want to wish each of them just peace and the courage, because always after cloud, the sun is always coming out. So we will wait this time. Thank you very much, and for your important contribution and for your experience and experience with us, that your perspective had added real value to the international dialogue. And we will move. I decided to just
Thank you, Mrs. Christina.
Thank you. And I decided to shuffle. So we will listen both of the sides and different countries' experts, and we will move to Cyprus. And I wanted to invite as a speaker Mr. Loisos Mikhail. His topic is related. He just shortly. I know he has lots of the credentials, and I will shortly say that he's a specialist in international relations. He's author of many books, and he's an expert in diplomacy and public policy. And he's a CEO of Misois College. He's a doctorate candidate in University of Cyprus, and so on and so on. Dr. Loisos, I wanted to say so just as a coming closer. So Loisos Mikhail, please, stage is yours. Share with us your expertise from the Cyprus perspective, because Cyprus is so close, and we know that we have a businesses, the branches from the Lebanese businessmen and the vice versa.
Thank you very much, dear Christine, dear colleagues, everyone, good morning. And you're giving me a great pass, actually. Let me start with something very simple here, Christine. I'm speaking to you from Cyprus. From here, actually, Beirut is about 260 kilometers away. That's less than an hour by air. On a clear evening, some people are saying on our eastern coast, by exaggerating, of course, that they can almost see Lebanon just in front of them. Well, I mentioned that at the beginning because it explains everything else that I'm going to say. When Lebanon is unwell, actually, dear Christine, Cyprus feels it. Not metaphorically, we feel it in our ports, in our reception centers, in our hospitals, in our economy. And when Lebanon does well, we do well as well. So let me give you my central message now at the start so you know exactly where I'm going. In an Eastern Mediterranean that is changing faster than any of us can properly process, and I think that's obvious. We need a safe and prosperous Lebanon more than ever. We have needed it before. Now, where are we actually standing this morning? The last 5 months have been really brutal. Escalation in early March, and ground operation, thousands of Lebanese killed, roughly 500,000 people still displaced from their homes as we speak. Then a ceasefire in April, then months of negotiations, and on the 26th of June, in Washington, a framework signed between Lebanon, Israel, and the United States. And this week, just 5 days ago, the first pilot zones opened in 3 villages in the south. But 3 villages, that's where we are now. That's the size of the step that we are taking. I want to be careful here and honest with you, dear Christine and dear colleagues. I'm not going to sit in front of a large Lebanese audience and explain to Lebanon what Lebanon should do. This is not my place. And frankly, my own country has been on the receiving end of enough well-meaning foreign advice over 52 years now to know exactly how that lands. So instead, let me tell you what I see from across the water, what worries me, and what I think is genuinely possible. 3 structural shifts, and I'll be quick, dear Christina. First, the regional security architecture isn't being repaired. It's being replaced. UNIFIL ceases operations on the 31st of December this year, after nearly 50 years. Whatever comes next, a French-Italian-led coalition, a possible European mission, bilateral agreements, nobody knows, is being designed right now, in these months, in rooms in Brussels, in Paris, in Rome, in Washington. And that leads to something, I'd say, to any small state, including my own, of course, being the room where design happens. Because the alternative is to receive the design afterwards, finished, and be asked to live inside it. Second, the price of sovereignty has gone really up. Every conversation about Lebanon right now, reconstruction money, European agreements, investments, security guarantees, every single one now runs through one question. Does the Lebanese state hold effective authority over Lebanese territory? That is now the gateway question. It is uncomfortable, I know, but it is also the reality of the fight. Third, and this is the one that I believe nobody talks about enough, the region is being physically rewired. Cables, pipelines, electricity grids, ports, data routes, you can name anything you might have in mind. Infrastructure is the most honest form of diplomacy we have. It doesn't make speeches, it simply goes wherever it is safe to go, and it routes around wherever it isn't. That is the real risk for Lebanon. Not isolation, but being bypassed, quietly, on a map, in an engineer's office, in a decision nobody announces. And that window is open now, not in 5 years, but now. So what Cyprus and Lebanon have actually built it in the last years, which actually brings me to my own country, and I'll be concrete rather than sentimental. Last November in Baba, our 2 presidents signed the delimitation of the exclusive economic zones, a file that had been frozen, dear Christine, since 2007, 18 years, signed in the middle of one of the hardest periods Lebanon has faced. Nobody signs a maritime boundary agreement with a neighbor they have given up on. And look at what happens now. Lebanon's blockades went to a consortium of Total Energies, Qatar Energy, and Eni. There is a World Bank-backed feasibility study on connecting our 2 electricity grids, which speaks directly to Lebanon's power crisis. There's a new undersea telecommunication cable between us, and there's also a joint work on search and rescue, migration, and security. All of it based on one boring and glamorous principle, the median line. International law, the law of the sea, not force, not special circumstances, not who has the bigger navy. That principle is the reason small states can exist at all. And of course, I'm talking about Lebanon and Cyprus right now. It is worth defending in Beirut and in Nicosia alike. So when the European Commission announced its €1 billion packages for Lebanon in Beirut, the president of Cyprus was standing just beside the president of the Commission, a small member state spending its influence on its neighbor. And just 2 weeks ago, we said it publicly. Cyprus insists on opening negotiations for a comprehensive EU strategic agreement with Lebanon. The way we did for Jordan and Egypt, this way we want to do it for Lebanon as well. Because money is temporary, and the structural relationship with the European Union is permanent. So what does a calm, secure Lebanon actually deliver? Let me be very fast and very practical. Energy, offshore explorations that investors will actually finance, grid interconnections, Lebanese homes with power that doesn't stop. Trade, Beirut on a gateway again, rather than a place logistics routes carefully avoid. The third that I can think of, dear Christine, it's security, of course. A state with a monopoly on force is a predictable neighbor, and predictability is the most underrated commodity in this region. Fourth, migration, which is deeply affecting my country as well. I work on demography and migration policy. It's my field. And I'll say this plainly. People do not board boats from a country that works. Every serious migration policy begins as a stability policy. Everything else, it's just management of symptoms. And of course, people, dear Christine, dear colleagues, students, tourists, the diaspora, Lebanon's greatest untapped assets. They come back when they can plan, not when they are told it's safe, when they can plan. But let me lift my eyes past the next 6 months, because Lebanon people deserve to hear the longer horizon, not only the emergency, dear Christine. The economic collapse that began in 2019, one of the worst the modern world has recorded, it's not a life sentence. It was a collapse of confidence as much as of currency. And the confidence is the one that peace, and only peace, can give back. With stability, the offshore gas stops being a line on a map and becomes a revenue in a treasury. Lebanon stops living inside an electricity crisis and starts trading energy with its neighbors. The banks can be rebuilt, real reform becomes possible, and the capital that fled starts looking for a way home. And then there is the asset no one else in the region holds in the same measure, the Lebanese diaspora. Millions of people in the Gulf, in Europe, in the Americas, in Africa, here in Cyprus as well, skilled, entrepreneurial, and quietly enabled to give up on the country. They don't need convincing to invest in Lebanon. They need one simple thing, a reason to believe it will last. For most of the last century, Beirut was the hospital of the region, the university, the bank, the port. That capacity was never destroyed, only put to sleep. Peace is what wakes it up. And there is the generation I think about most, the young Lebanese who have known nothing but crisis, the collapse, the port explosion, this war. For too many of them, the future and the airport have become almost the same word. A lasting peace changes that one question. It lets the young person in Tripoli or Tyre or in the Pekka building of life here, instead of planning the way out. That is what is truly on the table. Not merely the absence of war, but the presence of a future. Let me close with the parallel I'm most often asked about, and let me be careful with it, because there are two very different conflicts, and I don't want to insult anyone by pretending otherwise. But there is one lesson, and it's ours, and it cost us dearly. In 1974, dear colleagues, a third of my country's population was displaced in a matter of days. 37% of our territory came under foreign military control, and of course I'm talking about the Turkish invasion. We were told that it was temporary, that the diplomacy will follow within months. That was 52 years ago, and I'm still describing in the present tense. So nothing in this region is a permanent as a temporary agreement. So the only advice I will allow myself as a friend, not as an expert, to my colleagues in Lebanon is this. The window for a genuine settlement is early. It is at the beginning when things are still uncomfortable and unresolved, and everyone is still paying attention. It is not later when a ceasefire line has quietly hardened into a border that nobody actually ever agreed to. Do not let this become normal. And the second lesson, which is more hopeful, in Cyprus, our economy recovered long before our politics did. And it is in the end, the economy pulled the politics forward. Ports, universities, shipping, Europe, reconstruction. It's not a consolidation process you accept instead of justice. It is the machine that actually generates the leverage to pursue it. So to come back, where do I start and conclude? A safe Lebanon is not a favor, dear Christine, dear colleagues, that the region grants to Lebanon. It is the condition for the Eastern Mediterranean to function at all. For energy, for trade, for security, for migration, for everything the rest of us say we want. We are neighbors, 260 kilometers, we rise together, or we manage decline separately. And that is why today we need a safe and prosperous Lebanon more than we have ever needed it before. Thank you very much, dear Christine.
Thank you very much. It was really so provoking, valuable presentation. As always, your presentations are great. And you raised several questions that came to my mind about the security, migration, where you're expert as well. And I would like to ask, if you give me permission, some question. As you mentioned it about the machine and economy, which is number one. We all know that Lebanon is one of the gates in Mediterranean. And Lebanon is it's like a golden gate, which all this trade and shipping, maritime law, and we might just say that it just really stagnation now because of the war. Nothing is working. It's stopped. Cyprus is a strategic partner of the Lebanon, and the Lebanon is a strategic partner of the Cyprus. For how we can manage this machine to start work again? Like you said, the machine in Cyprus is working because we consolidate in economy, which is helping because the politicians are coming and going, as you know, but the economy we have to strategically focus on economy of the country. What are these can join Cyprus-Lebanon initiative between businessmen and the experts would you recommend to begin in the near future, let's say?
I mentioned earlier the strategic partnership with European Union, and I did that on purpose. I strongly believe that the strategic partnership with European Union will give actually the vehicle for Lebanon to start that machine ahead, to fuel that machine up in order to come up with infrastructures, in order to move trade, in order to move energy. And I just want to remind you that especially for the European Union nowadays, it is a priority to seek for alternative energy corridors in order to cover its own needs. And I'm talking, of course, after the era of the Russian invasion in Ukraine and what else happened since 5 years ago, when actually European Union started looking for new partners, mostly on the energy sector. Lebanon is such one partner. Lebanon is a partner that the European Union can count on. We do know the internal problems, the internal issues that actually led Lebanon to what they are facing today. Nevertheless, I will never stop saying that Lebanon has amazing potentials on becoming one of the most prosperous countries in this region. And by conducting those partnerships with European Union, with Cyprus, or even with the countries of the Gulf, and of course, by not allowing anyone else to intervene and interfere on the internal issues of Lebanon, that I believe would be the vehicle to start all these processes in order to improve the economy and, of course, allow Lebanese economy to start moving forward.
Thank you very much. But you mentioned something about the education training. I guess you are a principal and CEO of your own. You say that the new generation of Lebanon, they are spending in trying to survive in the airports, and they're trying to leave the country. They are escaping, of course, and then the parents want to see that they are the babies and the children sacrifice. So, what role can education or supporting EU projects that you mentioned it now to professional training to play and support the social stability and maybe develop and help this new generation of Lebanon? Because we don't want to teach them to hate, because the hatred is what is escalating now in Lebanon. So how can we support them?
Absolutely the contrary, dear Christine. You know that when we are talking about educating the new generation by providing them the basic knowledge on diplomacy, by providing them the basic knowledge of intercultural relations, of giving them the opportunity to realize on which world we are living today, and what does cooperating with each other means for the prosperity of a country, especially when we are talking about Lebanon and what Lebanon brings together. So education can play an amazing role on providing those elements, providing those to that young generation, realize how many potentials the country has, and go back to the country, take the future to their hands, and change things as they want to change. Because as I said earlier on my speech to Christine, no one gets into a boat or an airplane and gets out of the country if they believe that they have future in the country. Trust me, no one does. Not the Syrians, not the Lebanese, not the Jordans, nobody. So if we provide them the tools, the infrastructure, the knowledge, and get them to realize what amazing things they can do in the country, trust me, they won't have the need to fly away from the country. But it's about time to change things, and it's about time the new generation takes matters into their hands.
I fully agree with you, because education, the correct education, not the education services, I mentioned it before you came, that nowadays most of the organizations, they provide education services, but not clear, full established education programs. So we
And
need
most
to
importantly,
yes.
Christine, if I make critical thinking, that's what we lack today. And that's what education actually should bring together, not just knowledge, but improving critical thinking.
Yes, correct. Thank you very much for your important contribution for today. It's really crucial in the webinar, for sharing your experience with us and your perspectives and the real value to today's international dialogue regarding the Lebanon. And I know you mean what you say. And just questions, because I know you are very tied up and you are busy enough. So I know maybe you will leave earlier today.
About 10 minutes I need to go by. I sincerely apologize.
Yes, any questions we will have from our experts too, I will just forward by email. So thank you very much for audience on YouTube, our channel. We want to say thank you to Mr. Luis Michael for his experience, and we do hope to greet you. And we know soon as we have our own conference and we'll see each other in person. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear.
So I want to smoothly move back to Lebanon. So we will shuffle, you will go back to Cyprus and Lebanon to Brazil, and we'll see how the experts can share their expertise with each other, and how it's like, I want to just build a picture by puzzle it one speaker by another. So I want to invite the next hour expert, and his name is Dr. Rafik Grazi. His topic is what role should diplomacy play in preventing future conflicts? It's really interesting. After Mr. Loisus, he will just transfer. And who is Dr. Rafik? He's a managing partner of ILLC law firm, if I'm pronouncing correct. Founding member of the Reform Organization and legal professional working in litigation, arbitration, mediation, legislative reforms, and the human rights advocacy. I can share a lot of credentials of Mr. Rafik Grazi, but better he will take his floor and start to share his expertise. And please, the stage is yours.
First of all, thank you so much for the introduction and for the opportunity to contribute in this valuable workshop and webinar. Actually, this topic is a very wide topic. It is very critical and important, and it actually draws the future of our country. This country, which we love in all our hearts, and we carry its pain wherever we go in the world, and we know how much it is suffering. And you've spoken about the displacement of around 1 million Lebanese people from their homes, and in addition to daily people being killed, people not sleeping in the cars, sleeping in tents. this is not the Lebanon that we know, and this is not the Lebanon that was described by my colleague as the Paris or the Switzerland of the Middle East. So what we want is to see how the international diplomacy could contribute in obtaining a sustainable peace. And now we should come to describe and to have an agreement at the confrontation what is the meaning of peace and what kind of peace we want before entering into the dialogue and before discussing what we want. Peace is a very wide, let's say, wide understanding. And peace is something that the United Nations had in its convention aims that all countries collaborate in order to reach to a sustainable peace, and that people and all states are equal in their sovereignty. This is what is mentioned in the Convention of the United Nations. Regardless of the exceptions of these two fundamental principles and topics, however, let us start from here. What does peace mean to Lebanese people? This particular word is actually controversial because to half of the Lebanese population, they see peace as the end of the war and the state of war, and to the other half, they see this as compliance and being obedient to the superior powers in the world. And speaking about the United States and the Israel coalition. So to us in Lebanon, had we figured what is peace before, and how could we maintain this state of peace to the future? What the Lebanese people want, they are aiming for a state. They are aiming to have a sovereign country over its entire 10,452 kilometers, an entire map to be completely independent without any external intervention, whether from the Syrian, whether from the Israeli, whether from the multiple of countries that are intervening in the security of the Lebanon, in the economic security and in the social security and in the military security and in the entire security. Now, how would we discuss diplomacy in maintaining this peace and in reaching peace? Now, I have to be very honest and frank and be very courageous in defining the kind of peace we want. Because in Lebanon, the composition of the Lebanese people is really very sophisticated. And now, how can you convince 1 million displaced people with all the victims that were victims of the war against them? How could you convince them that tomorrow morning everything is going to be very okay and we need to hug each other with the Israeli regime and all of that? That is something that I think we are unable. We need to respect the blood. We need to respect the feeling of the people. So the kind of peace I am looking for is this a legal peace that will end the state of war. That is the peace, not the peace between the people. The peace between the people, that's a future aim that needs time to heal, because we need to respect the feelings and the state that these people are being in. But as a stepping stone, let us first reach the stability. Let us first reach to end of the state of war, and that the Lebanese country and state has its full sovereignty over the entire map and jurisdiction. And these two foundings are the basis to take back Lebanon to the shining star of the Middle East. Because if we do not have a state, and if we do not end the state of war, each 20 years we will have to destroy our country, and then afterwards start searching for funds to rebuild the country. And this is not how we want to live in Lebanon. Now, this takes us to the other part of my question and my presentation. My presentation is about the role of diplomacy in securing peace and in maintaining peace. Actually, history witnesses two kinds of diplomacy. The interactive diplomacy, which is in the state of war, that after the crisis happens, you can see diplomats working together and meeting to end the state of the crisis. But what we want here is the second part of diplomacy. After we end the state of war, we want the preventive diplomacy that will lead to a Lebanon and a region free of conflicts. We do not need to wait for the war to happen in order to confrontation, in order for the war not to step in and cause what it causes. So this is the second part of the diplomacy, which if we review in history, we can find many examples that maybe they're unforgotten because they're forgotten because people usually tend to remember the action side of the diplomacy and do not reflect the part of diplomacy which maintains peace. I will give an example, the Islands dispute. Okay, there was a dispute between Finland and Sweden over these islands, and Finland claims sovereignty over these islands, and at the same time the people of the islands speak Swedish, and they want to be a part together, agreed to go to the League of Body ruling the international affairs before the European before the United Nations was created, and therefore there were rapporteurs who were assigned in order to find a solution for this dispute. The solution was to demilitarize the Finland military over these islands, but at the same time they will be under the sovereignty of Finland, but they have the Swedish language as the official language, and they have their own space and their own traditions, which was to be respected by the Finland. This is one of the examples of how diplomacy in preventive diplomacy could save lives and could save disputes and conflicts and armed conflicts. There's another example that I could give is about the Cuban missiles in, I think, 1960s or 1970s. And it was between Cuban and the United States. And because of the dispute between the Soviet Union and the United States, afterwards there was a direct negotiation between the belated John F. Kennedy and the Russian president, in which this dialogue led to solve this problem peacefully without escalating to a war. And there is also a third example that I could give is about in Vienna, the Vienna concert, and after the war of 1880s, what do they call, the Napoleon War, and which Europe had been suffering for years of conflicts. After that, around 30 countries met in Vienna, and they made the Vienna concert. It was given as a nickname, and it was actually the Congress of Vienna, which included around 30 countries, in order to take the agreements from bilateral agreements into multilateral agreements, and the parties of these of this convention are to abide by peacemaking and the respecting of human rights. These are three major examples in the world that proves that preventive diplomacy might help in peace sustainability. Now, you might say that there are lots of issues that might contradict this, especially that how could we say that states are sovereign and equal in sovereignty? At the same time, you have the five main countries who have the right of veto. I say that's true. We cannot split international rules and regulations from the international policy and interests. And as Ronald Reagan in the 1980s, he said a very famous quote. After he asked about a certain position, he said that there is an American strict policy. After a few years, the reporter asked him again. She reminded him that in a previous interview, he spoke about the American strict policy. He answered surprisingly, "Did I say that?" She said, "Yes." He said, "You might have misquoted me. There is no one strict American policy. There is one strict American interest." And this is what we fear of in the world, that each country like China, like US, like other nations have their own interest that comes first, that maybe prevails over the world peace that we are looking for. Now, after the crisis of Iran and US, which was spread into a regional crisis and a regional war, we are also fearing what will happen between China and Taiwan and other countries, and how will it end between Ukraine and Russia. So we cannot ask how we could get sustainable peace if these 5 countries do not really impose the sustainable peace away from their own interests. I'm sorry, it maybe took a long time, but I still have a little of information to provide. When it comes to Lebanon, our case is very critical and very controversial, and no one can envy us for the position that we are, because it is very complicated. We have a state that wants to be a state, and we have a militia that is ordered by an external country. We have like more than 5 or 6 nations playing in our country and playing in the stability of our country. And this is not something new. This is something in history that's happened. How could we reach to that the other states could respect the UN Convention and the sovereignty of Lebanon? Now, I would like to say that since 1949, there was the convention between Lebanon and Israel to end the state of war without going to peace. This ensured 20 years of peace from 1949 until 1969. And here where I want to point my finger on the Cairo Convention, in which we wanted a convention to protect Lebanon from armed conflicts. And on the contrary, the 1969 convention gave legitimacy to the Palestinians to make armed attacks against Israel. Now, this is something that caused the entire chain to fall down, going to the World War of 1975, going to the 1982 invasion of Israel. Afterwards, we had a settlement to end the state of war in Lebanon internally. And then the conflict with Israel continued until the year 2000, in which Israel complied to the 425 decision of the United Nations. But after that, we reached to liberate our country, but still the militia is there in Lebanon. In 2006, the militia decided to take a unilateral decision to put Lebanon inside a conflict with Israel. And afterwards, in 2023 until 2026 and ongoing, and we don't know if this is going to be a sustainable peace. Now, I would like to give a very great appreciation to the Lebanese people, ambassador in United States, and the Lebanese president, who are working against all odds to use the diplomacy to end this state of chaos that we are living in. And that is all I would like to share with you in this collaboration.
Thank you very much. It was really insightful and heartbreaking. And I felt, because I'm a psychologist as well, I felt that you gave a weight in each of the word what you want to share. And you have raised it a really nice, the points directly connecting to our today meeting. And from your permission, if you give me permission, I want to ask you some questions. You pointed that some, the famous, I think one of the Venetian Convention, the Venice, I say it, Vienna, where they decided to come, the 30 countries, they decided to come, they understood. So we have some kind of proverb. If you don't understand from the first time what is the crisis of the war, and you all the time, 1945, 1939, Europe start again. Like in Europe, we faced its second war. So this, if you don't understand the first time, you went to the second time, and now the second time is, I think the humans are not able to study. I think we don't have a good teachers. How do you think? So we need a good teachers. Now I start to understand some point of our webinar that, just don't get me wrong. So why I'm all the time pointing about education? We need a good teachers, global teachers who have raising their voice and said, students, please hold on. If you want to read it again, the book of the peace. If you don't understood the first war, second war, and you are again coming to the third war, something going wrong. We have a bad teachers.
I'm going to answer this
Yes.
question from the international humanitarian law perspective. Actually, the state of war in the world is never ended throughout history, and I don't think it will end. But what we are aiming for is to a more humanitarian law. See the controversy. So we want a more humanitarian war, a more military-based war, and not collateral damage of 30,000 human beings being killed by because of self-defense recognition. Because even describing or explaining what is the word of self-defense that give legitimacy for war is now a critical issue and a crucial issue. Because, for example, you can see the Israeli army is called the Israeli Defense Army, and it was never in the state of defense. It was always in the state of attack. So how could you explain this contradiction? On the other hand, the state of war will never end, because you always, in the hierarchy of countries and states, you have in the highest pyramid the strongest country, which are the 5 countries, and basically they're not the 5. You have 1 or 2. Number 1 comes US, and number 2 comes China. I don't know if my description is accurate, but this is how I see it. Afterwards, you have strong countries, but not the same as the as US and China and Russia. Then comes the middle countries, and then comes the weak countries. Now the problem is you have the monopolizing countries. You either have to be resilient to them, or you have to be compliant to them. When you are compliant to these countries, then the risk of war is low. But when you are resilient to them, then the risk of war is high. And we can give many examples about this. The Iraqi-Kuwaiti conflict, in which the law, international law, which says that the international law arises or emanates from the actual position created by war. That's number 1 rule. Or number 2 rule, that the law cannot come from an unequal status. Now, Iraq had invaded Kuwait based on imposing a fact by the fact of power. However, the United States of America decided to impose the same law on Iraq and imposed her to get out of Kuwait. And because Iraq was not a compliant country, it was a resilient country, the war happened, the first Iraqi war. And the second Iraqi war goes in the same context. Because if Iraq was compliant and not resilient, then there was no reason to be a war. Same goes to Iran. Iran is not the number 1 country. It's a strong country, but it's not at the same level as the United States. And the war is because Iran was resilient and not compliant. But the reasons of resilience, that's their own issue. I will not ever be in position to allow them to use our country to impose their own policy in the region.
I will just, if you give me permission, just you told me in the power, like Iran is not the same like United States. So if we will look at the countries from the perspectives of the power and the levels, so I will I think disagree in some points, because as a polyculture mediator, for me it's important. We need to look at the country's level, not only by the power, education, or something. Each of the power, if you want to be equal, and in diplomacy, it's not the politics. In diplomacy, each of the country have a voice. Each of the country we have to protect their sovereignty, identity, traditions, and everything. So from this, I will not divide Iran, Iraq, or USA, or other countries, Lebanon, because each of you are unique. You are carrying your history. You did what you did in previously, because we have to, my point of view, we need to study from our mistakes, what we are doing as a human being and representative of our nationality. Doesn't matter where we are living now. First of all, we are who we are.
I would like to explain this from another example, which might give my opinion in a clearer way. You are also aware that before there were conflicts between Great Britain and the United States. This happened in history, and this is a great example to speak about. For example, when Great Britain intervened in the Confederation of the U.S., and some of the states were not happy and satisfied about this intervention, mediation led to the fact that Great Britain had to pay a fine of, I think, $16 million at that time in the 1880s. So that's one example. But the other example I would like to give is, after the World War, the United States became a stronger country than Great Britain. And in this case, Great Britain had to choose between opposing the United States or complying to the United States. The risk of war would have been higher if there were contradiction between UK and the US. But actually, UK decided to be part of the coalition with United States, and which decreased the potential war between the countries.
Thank you very much. We can, I think, discuss a lot, and our speakers are clearly reading, and just I do believe they understand this is a format of our IAMPE webinars, where you're just not only presenting something what you're sharing, but we want to figure out how can it possibly be helpful for the nation or the region, or maybe we now answer it on some of the several questions of your compatriot in Lebanon. So this is why we are doing that. Again, I will not ask more. If we will have a question, we will come back.
Like, we just need to answer your question. Last sentence, we just need to promote the preventive diplomacy. This will save lives.
Yes, but in some region, especially, we have it before His Excellency from Arab League ambassador, Mr. Hisham, he says, unfortunately, the preventive diplomacy is not working all the time. Unfortunately. So it is how, from his experience, his Arab League, this confronted Middle East is not easy region. And if I, from my history and from mentors previously, I think 20 years ago, what he said to me, he was like, we have it in Custom Academy. He told me, Christina, it's not such educated. You have to experience. You can read 1,000 books. You can see 1,000 movies or whatever. You can listen 1,000 things. But in the time you will experience and you will feel by your skin, what is this war about? How the people act or react? How is actually working? You can't give full expertise. We can speak a lot, but people who are on the ceasefire, they are there, they feel it, they see how they are interact with each other. They can say yes or no. So as we listened from him, he says, preventive diplomacy is dying. So the classical diplomacy is dying. So what we have to do, that's why we have today webinar. We need to rebuild. That's why our IAMPE and we each other, we created this platform, IMDC. We want to rebuild the classical diplomacy. We want to, through education, teach young generation that it's possible to understand without knowing language. We face it too much barriers by the culture, language, identity, but at the same time, we came to agreement. Why? Even not knowing now one single word in Arabic, and there is a Kurdish language, Arabic language, English, Armenian, Georgian, by interaction, anyway, by body language, you can come and understand. It's everything what we have high dimension. So thank you very much for your time and your expertise. We will move forward to the next our expert, exactly why I'm pointing about the body language or something like that. So he will answer on some of the questions what we just now facing. I want to invite our next speaker, Mr. Anto Andranik Baroyan from Cyprus. So we're from Lebanon. We are smoothly coming back to Cyprus. He will approach diplomacy from the perspective of the human behavior, communication, perception, trust elements, frequently determine whether the dialogue succeed or fail. And he's the expert in the human behavior analyst, and he's specialized exactly in the body languages, facial expression, deception detection, micro expressions. So I think I will not, if I will forget something, Ando, just let me know. So floor is yours.
So first of all, thank you very much, Christine. This is my very first networking event as ambassador to the MENA region. So it is both an honor and a pleasure to be here today. I will not talk for too long because I want my esteemed guests to have their moment as well. There are a couple of things worth mentioning. The first thing is, think about you are an owner of a business and you are about to hire a CEO, and that CEO is going to run the business. They're going to know everything from inside to outside, finance, structures, everything. When you're doing the interview to find that CEO, there is one key element that you're looking for above everything else. I mean, experience is important, understanding is important, know-how is important, and so on and so forth. But there's one key element that goes over and above everything else, and that's the element of trust. If you do not trust the person, you will never hire that person for that specific role. And this is something that was touched on by Rafik, where he mentioned there is a level of respect. Respect is earned in the same way that trust is earned. So my role, I've been involved in the financial industry for almost 3 decades now, in junior positions all the way to CEO, business development, operations, executive director, and so on and so forth. And at a very young age, I was intrigued by the psychology of human behavior. And why do people do things, say things, or act in a certain way, which is different to other people? Now, when it comes to mediation, which I've been involved in with 2 parties, it's important to understand and, first of all, remove the fact of emotional linkage in a specific situation, which means that you need to think more with your mind rather than your heart, because at the end of the day, we're all human. We all feel things. We all understand things. But when you're assessing a specific situation, whether it's mediation in the legal terms, which I've worked with lawyers and judges, with the police force, or whether it's just business owners trying to recruit specific people or understanding their employees and management a little bit better, there is always that element of we usually put our feelings into the conversation. And that's the first mistake that we make. Understandably so, it's very difficult. I'm not saying it's easy, but it does take a lot of practice to be able to have a conversation with someone without having a preconditioned understanding of, I know who you are by your name, surname, religion, political views, and so on and so forth. And working on, let's say, legal cases or working with the mediation or merger acquisition deals and so on and so forth, it's easy for me to detach myself and become a neutral party and listen from both points of view without putting my own feelings into the negotiation process. And I think that's very important. But again, the level of trust is the key, in my personal opinion, from, like I said, almost 3 decades of working in business and, legal. There is that level of trust. And you mentioned something also, Christine, and also I think Loizos mentioned something with regards to experience. Again, trust is gained through experience, right? And I think nowadays, majority of the conflicts are due to lack of trust. And that might sound a bit broad, but put yourself into the perspective of BRICS. So the latest organization that comprises of Brazil, Russia, China, India, South Africa. The reason why they developed BRICS is they don't trust the US and they don't want to hold so many US dollars in their country. So they said, you know what, because we have a lack of trust to the US, let's create our own organization, and then we can be running just to make sure there's no devaluation in the currency and so on and so forth. So the level of trust is very important. And the second thing for me is also respect, and something that I think Roland mentioned and also Rafik mentioned. It's the level of respect. If there's no respect between two parties in a mediation, then it's an uphill battle. You're not going to get to a successful conclusion to the matter. Now, this is all, fine saying this from, behind the camera and not being involved in, political negotiations on a higher level. But again, it's as basic as trusting the person in front of you, respecting the person in front of you. So, I've been in business, like I said, for almost 3 decades. I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Originally, I'm born and raised in South Africa. I reside in Cyprus, and I'm of Armenian heritage. So in Cyprus, we've seen the invasion in 1970s. In Armenia, we have the conflicts that's still ongoing in Nagorno-Karabakh and Artsakh. And obviously South Africa with the whole process of the apartheid and uprising and cultural differences. I've seen it all. And the one thing that leads people to have that understanding between each other is respect and trust. If there's no respect or trust, then diplomacy is very difficult to gain traction and to be able to have people sitting down around the table and saying, hey, tell me your side of the story, without having any other intuitions of, I know what you're thinking because you're XYZ. But yes, anybody has any questions, feel free to reach out to me directly. But trust and respect are the 2 main key elements. Without those 2 elements, it would be very difficult for us to gain any type of traction, any type of negotiation, peace, any type of understanding in any way, shape, or form, whether it's in politics, business, and so on and so forth.
Just admire your how are you just composing everything and put it in the box smoothly. It's in a way some thank you. Your presentation was short but really productive. I have a question. For me, this is one of the best topic. And nowadays, as we do not understand our languages, even though, coming from the religion that Roland mentioned it, I don't want to put the religion on the first, but sometimes when you are coming back to some books, religion books, or the culture, traditional, or whatever they are mentioning, constitutions, they are saying that we need to speak. What we are using, verbal, right? We try to use, but nowadays I understand that people know how to use organically. They know that they need to speak, but they don't know how to use their language, their tongue. So maybe we have to come back and start to use non-verbal communication in order to come to the peace. So something is confused me. Because we have a smartphone, smart everything. Our medicine is not like 50, 100 years ago. So we have everything smart. We consider ourselves Homo sapiens. And we have to think before do something, correct? So yes. How do you think? Can cultural differences lead to incorrect interpretations of body languages, and how should the diplomats or the public actors, doesn't matter, diplomat or they're not, manage this risk?
So just to take, I don't want to bore people watching this with a lot of details, but just to take basic facts. So almost over 80% of our communication is done non-verbally. Okay, so when I'm saying something, my body is saying something different. I can be part of this conversation, but I constantly look at my watch. I'm looking elsewhere. I'm tapping my feet. Everything is being produced that's non-verbal. And this is where I come in as a profiler to understand what does those non-verbal cues mean. Okay. Now, it's very important that you touched on something very important, Christine, is when I visited Lebanon a few years back to Beirut, I was in a region called Jounieh. Jounieh is supposedly a Christian-oriented region. So automatically, if I had perceived that the people I would meet, the business owners that I would meet would be Christian and not Muslim, then I would be caught in a very difficult situation talking about Jesus, talking about Christ, talking about the Bible, and so on and so forth. So the lesson there is don't have a preconceived idea of, I know who these people are. This is where communication, probing, asking the right questions, and having open-ended questions comes into play. So for example, I know Roland, he mentioned Jesus, and he quoted saying Jesus' first miracle in the Bible was in Lebanon. So automatically my brain says he has to be Christian, right? It makes no difference, but that's where my mind goes. So if I had a conversation with him, I would automatically assume that he's Christian, but maybe he's a religious scholar. Maybe he knows the Bible, maybe he knows the Torah, maybe he knows the Quran, maybe he's also following Buddhist. I shouldn't take that into as a default, as a preconceived idea. So that's where the communication also comes in play, and to ask questions and just say, you know, who are you, where are you from, what do you do, and so on and so forth, and let people talk. Again, majority of the time, we as, like you said, Homo sapiens, we have a tendency of talking more than listening. And that's our first mistake. Think of legal terms when lawyers don't do all the talking. They ask the client, tell me what happened. And then they keep quiet. The police do exactly the same thing during interrogation and interviews. They say, okay, tell me what happened. They sit back and they take down their notes and they write all the references, both verbal and non-verbal. So they can revert back to this and say, but you mentioned something about last night. Where were you from 10 o'clock to 12 o'clock? Because they know that your nonverbal communication showed that you were very nervous about that time frame. So again, not to have any preconceived ideas about, I know this, I know that. This is where my job comes in play as a profiler, to ask the right questions and to look at what the body is telling you without really them telling you verbally. And that is the key of the element of trusting the person or not. Because if I say something to you and I'm looking away and I don't show I'm confident enough in the things I'm saying, you will not trust me. 100% you will not trust me. You might not know consciously why you don't trust me, but you'll think, you know, there's something wrong with this guy. I just didn't like him. When I was talking to him, I didn't get the good feeling, because subconsciously you're processing all the nonverbal cues. So yes, again, not to have any preconceived ideas about who you're speaking to. Ask, speak, probe, and have fun in that conversation. And never think you know, because assumptions are the root of all mess ups, as they say. It's another term they use, but I'm just making it a little bit better. Assumption is the root of all mess ups. So, and that's true.
Thank you very much. As always, thank you. And if we will have some questions, if you'll stay with us, and we'll have some questions, because
pleasure.
at the end, we want to do some debriefs, and we will share, and maybe after all these presentations, some of the good idea and the plan will come to the table. So this is the point of our webinar. So we will move from Lebanon and Cyprus to another continent. This is what makes our webinars unique, that we want to invite not only Mediterranean or the experts from the countries, but someone who is look at that side, because the third party sometimes can read underline. And my pleasure and honor to invite our another ambassador, so who will represent us, in the North America, is Professor Juan Carlos Del Bianco.
Good morning.
Shortly, I will
Good morning.
explain briefly about Jorge Carlos. He's a Brazilian legal scholar, professor, certified mediator, president of IBROMAC. He's creating restorative mediation. He's author of the numerous books, and he's an experienced trainer, and he's a professor in lots of the universities. It's a great pleasure to introduce him. Professor, the stage is yours, floor is yours, please.
Thank you very much, and I greet everybody from Brazil. Good morning. Well, today I'm going to talk about the future of international diplomacy in a changing world. Well, I like to provoke you, and let me start with a claim that maybe will sound uncomfortable to most people in this room, in a room like this. In my opinion, the traditional diplomacy, as we've learned for a long time from Westphalia, for example, does not exist anymore. It's being bypassed. And the critical point is that most diplomats, most professors, they have not observed, they have not noted yet. For 3 centuries or more, diplomacy meant states talking to states. They talked through accredited channels with sovereignty, and they talked as organizing principle. And that attitude, or this attitude, assumed a world of clearly bounded actors. But it does not describe the world we live today. It does not describe the world we live anymore. And it's easy to prove. I'm going to tell you 3 shifts are dismantling all of this I'm talking about. The first, we have the multiplication of relevant actors. For example, a trade dispute today is not settled only by ministers of foreign affairs. It's shaped by multinationals, cooperation. It's shaped by sovereignty, Christine, wealth funds. Christine, it's shaped by arbitral tribunals, NGOs, and increasingly private mediation and arbitration chambers operating outside any single state jurisdiction. As we have here, our chamber, we have a lot of conflicts and arbitration from different countries. When a commercial dispute between European and Brazil investor, and in Africa and Brazil and Italy and Georgia state, for example, it's resolved faster, much faster, and more legitimately by an international arbitral tribunal than by any bilateral negotiation. That's not a footnote to diplomacy. Or that is diplomacy migrating to a new venue. That's what's happening. And the second shift is the erosion of the state's monopoly on legitimacy. The state says, no, I am the king. Like Frank Sinatra, I'm the king of the hill. No. Classic diplomacy dependent on states being the only actors capable to produce binding, enforceable outcomes. That monopoly is gone. It's over. Does not exist anymore. We have to put this in our mind. Investment arbitration, commercial mediation, and hybrid dispute resolution mechanism now of ADR produce outcomes that are enforced across more than 100 countries, jurisdictions around the world. Through instruments like, for example, the New York Convention, the Singapore Convention of Mediation, with more practical, and it's richly, frankly, in my opinion, it's richly the most diplomatic communiques ever had. Well, I have spent my life as a professor, as a lawyer, as a researcher. I have spent decades inside this mechanism. And I can tell you plainly, an arbitral award today carries much more operative force than most declaration issued by after G20 summit. Believe that, because as people's friends, Christian talked before, we have to experience, we have to feel under our skin, because we have been working, many diplomats have been working with, they have heard, not, they have not felt under the skin. Diplomacy, let's say frank enough, I have got you under my skin. That was diplomacy. Yes, behavior, non-verbal communication, so important this. And the third, speed asymmetry. Traditional diplomacy, I'm not criticizing traditional, I'm talking the new future. Traditional diplomacy is built for deliberation, measured by months and months and years. Conflict, commercial, political, cyber informational. Now, it moves in minutes, in seconds. Institutions that cannot compress their decision cycle will simply become irrelevant, because irrelevant to the dispute that matter, no matter how prestigious they are. And asymmetry, that's the point, the 31, asymmetry, speed of asymmetry. We have to understand that. So the question is, where does this lead to the future of diplomacy? Not dead, but decentralized and increasingly consensual rather than adversarial. Trust is the most important thing. If I do not trust you, I cannot sit at a table to negotiate. I have to trust you. I have to see in your eyes that I can trust in you. I have to see in all your movement, on your gesticulation, that you are a trustable person. If you are not, I'm not going to talk to you. Of course, I'll be scared. I'll be always looking at you as an enemy. And with enemy, we do not negotiate. No, because sometimes, remember, this kind of politician, they do not have friends. They have accomplices. That's what they have. So the diplomats of the next decade will not primarily be the state representatives exchanging notes verbally. They will be the architect of the consensual frameworks. Yes, of course, Christian, we need better professors. We need professors involved. We need professors that say that what I want to do, not be a professor, because in the night I have time to go to the university to teach, because in the morning I'm a lawyer, in the morning I'm a businessman. No. We have to have professors committed with the world, committed with this new generation. That's the point. And the most, I would say that the most consequential diplomatic act of this decade was not a treaty signature. It was a private arbitration panel resolving cross-border infrastructure dispute that worth billions with zero media coverage and full enforceability, because of the most important thing in arbitration and mediation is trust. Trust. That asymmetry, that high consequence, but low visibility. And I want to be direct about what this means for this moment, for us, for this audience. If we are trained only in classical diplomatic protocol, we are preparing for a world that is disappearing. That's why we need professors that know what the new generation, the new world, the future is expecting from us. The skill set that matters now is hybrid, treaty, laws, yes, but also mediation, negotiation, arbitration procedures, techniques, all will driving to make this the new world, the new world of the moment, disruption will demand resolution fashion. Let me tell you something, please. I'm not inviting you. I'm not telling here that this is not a call to Abaddon state diplomacy. No, please. States still hold coercive and symbolic power. I'm talking symbolic power. No private actor can replace. It's a call right now to stop pretending that the state is the channel or is the only primary channel to negotiate. And also we need negotiator with really abilities to negotiate. Not because they talk beautiful, not because they are stronger, no. We need it with techniques. Because when I have a fire in my house, I call the fireman. When I have a problem with my pipe, I call the man to fix my pipe. Why? When we have a conflict, that the peace, the most important, we call anybody else. Why? We need to call someone who had expertise to mediate the conflict with a technique, negotiation tools to negotiate, not anyone. The futures of diplomacy belongs to those who can move fluidly between public diplomacy and private consensual. And because of increasingly all of this, that is where the actual decisions are made, enforced and respected, trusted, respected, and above everything, professional, qualified to really negotiate, to really mediate, without any personal interest, neutral, with neutrality or maybe impartiality, because neutrality and partiality, they are different. Thank you so much, dear Christine.
Always pleasure to hear you, dear professor. I will just mention that you have you really carry a lot of experience, so no problem with that. And you just mentioned about the trust, but we need to have this trust, not among of the diplomats or experts, but in the families, between each other, the ordinary people. Just I'm talking about the trust. It's not something what it's not a miracle. So this can be gained, as Anto said. So this is important. So you have to trust yourself first of all. The trust is coming within yourself.
Yes.
When you start to trust yourself, you know who you are. You know what you want from this life. Because I met a lot, and nowadays, exactly a few months ago, I met so much high-profile people. But while I will look at them, but I zip it in my mouth, I could not share with them what exactly The way they speak, the way they look, sometimes it's a curse. When you read people between lines, you understand a lot, but you can't say frankly to people, you don't mean what you are saying, guy. So this is it's impossible. Sometimes you want to speak, but this diplomatic neutral language, your intelligence tries to keep you in this box. However, today I want to speak. I want to share with you that doesn't matter what kind of profile people are, the 90% of people of them, they are lost. They don't trust themselves. They look at the mirror in the morning, they wear the suit and say, oh, I am a diplomat. Oh, I am this, or I'm that, or I'm working in a ministry. I'm cool. I'm really cool. I'm good. Everything depends on me. Look at them, they are saying, but they really mean what they say, but they are not. Because there's lies themselves. This is what trust, lie. This is like, we like to say American pie, but it's international pie, which is we all of us stuck, some of the 90% people stuck in it. I fully agree with you that the trust is number one, but it's coming within us first. The second one, I have, if you give with your permission, of course, I would just like to say to you something. What do you believe? What do you believe? That mediation, as you know, we are specializing in mediation diplomacy. So should become an essential pillar, something new between classical and modern diplomacy of the future international relation, and why?
Um, when we're talking about, firstly, I'd like to explain something. When talk about trust, I remember Ralph Webster when he says, "What you do, you speak so loud that I cannot hear what you say. What you do, you're acting so loud. I cannot hear what you say because your non-verbal language speak much more than what you say to me. I can't hear you." I believe that mediation, diplomacy mediation, is the future of this past diplomacy. And what do we need? What we need, Christian, what I believe, we need to not be what we're talking here. We're talking about theory from the Greek. Theory, we just look the theoric, he or she just look at. We have to practice. In the beginning of all this, you talked about something about experience. So we need to have diplomats with a large experience. But the question is, but the young people, they are experienced. Shakespeare once said, do not compare experience of the years you have. No, it's different. Well, I am 66, but maybe, and I'm sure, Kristen, you are younger and you have much more experience in some areas, much more than me. I'm sure about that. And there's Antoparian, Dayton Ribeiro, and many of yours. When I'm in the classroom, I see many young mediators by essence. They are mediators because they are from their soul. Mediators is not formed, a diplomat is not formed only in the academy. No. I believe that we born mediator, and with the by the time of the past years, we are learning from techniques and are learning of being really a mediator. And I believe that the mediation, negotiation, and many other ADR tools will be, and they are the future of diplomacy. And the future is not tomorrow. The future is today. And remember, when you observe that many countries today, they are involved in conflict, they are not resisting because of they are they do not have to negotiate. They not know how to negotiate. But the main point is the eagle. That's the point. Unfortunately, thank you.
I could not that agree 1,000%. So that is kind of the recommendation for the new generation, but you gave it to now, Professor, in these seconds of the feedback, that all these reforms, it's for goodness, but these reforms have to be accepted by themselves, first of all, because you can't. Where's the will? There is a way. It's impossible. No, nothing is worthy to what is forced. If you will
Yes.
force something, as I say all the time to my students, if I will force you to do something, okay, you will do because you will say, oh, I have to get good marks. At the end, I will get certificate. This is what they're coming first to their mind. Certificate, not the knowledge, not the
Yes.
experience, something but certificate in order to show place. We are living inside of kind of showman hypermarket. It's our planet, show hypermarket, where we all the time trying to advertise ourselves, use and change. So this is like, it is how it is. So I don't want to just speak more about that, but I want to thank you. So it's an honor to listen to you, dear professor. So we smoothly will move another
Thank you.
Brazilian expert and professor. We want to listen his expertise as well, because dear Mr. Peter Elias Adram, facing with other estimate colleagues like Miss Lama. She's now in Lebanon, and they are facing some problems with internet connections, technical connections in the Lebanon. Not everybody can connect now because of this problem. And we will move to Brazil with two Professor Delton Ribeiro, Brazil. Just I'm spelling correct, I do hope, because first the time I make a
Great.
mistake.
Correct.
Yes. He is Brazilian university professor and legal scholar, with academic expertise in international law, human rights, democracy, constitution, peacebuilding, and so on and so on. Professor, I think I can say I speak about you, I can speak a lot, but I want to give you more time to share your expertise. So please, the stage and floor is yours.
Thank you very much. First of all, greetings from Brazil. As Dr. Cristina said, I am Deilton Ribeiro, Brazil. My family name has the same name of my country. That's why I say to my friends that I am Brazilian twice, by nationality and by my family name. Well, I'm very glad to be here. I would like to greet all my colleagues. It's a very good opportunity to have a conversation. And my country, Brazil, has a very strong bond with Lebanon. Before I start my lecture, in the late 19th century, Brazil has received the largest Lebanese diaspora, and here we have between 7 to 10 million Lebanese descendants. It's a number higher than the population of Lebanon itself. So that's why this bond is very strong. And also in Lebanon, there are 21,000 Brazilian living nowadays. So we have many Brazilians living in Lebanon. Well, I have prepared a screen to share. I would like to know if it's possible to share.
If possible, is access is open, please, Professor.
Yes, thank you. Well, please tell me when it will be visible.
Yes, it's visible.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So,
But Professor, in order to sorry to interrupt, because I think you have to correct your screen a bit.
oh, yes, just a minute. I think to put it in full mode.
Yes.
Yes?
And I think it is because it's not correct. Place it on the screen, and it's bigger than it's originally have to be. Maybe you have to change the range.
Well, how can I do? Because for me, it's full.
You see, it's full. You have to, I think. Now, yes, now it's okay.
It's okay?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. And I have prepared a screen, of course, to help my conversation with my colleagues and for this prestigious audience. And I have chosen the topic about Lebanon and the contemporary challenges of international law, sovereignty, civilian protection, and sustainable peace. Well, to start, I would like to have my guiding question. Well, how can international law contribute to de-escalation, protect civilian populations, and support a sustainable political solution in Lebanon? Well, the central challenge is to transform legal obligations into effective political action. International law must operate not only after violations occur, but also as an instrument of prevention. We had talked here about prevention. Dialogue, it's the most important. Accountability and peace building. And nowadays, we have Lebanon at the center of regional instability. Lebanon faces a complex crisis shaped by cross-border hostilities, institutional fragility, humanitarian pressure, and wider geopolitical tensions in Middle East. The conflict has affected civilian communities, essential infrastructure, and the capacity of the Lebanese state to respond effectively. And about essential infrastructure, we have also talked about here. Well, this situation cannot be addressed exclusively through military or security measures. It requires coordinated legal, diplomatic, humanitarian, and political action capable of preventing further regional escalation. And here, I pinpoint the international legal framework. International law establishes the normative foundations for the conduct of states. And here I remind Hugo Grotius when he idealized the international law, when he wrote about the foundations of the conduct of states in peace and in war, and the other actors involved in the crisis. These foundations include sovereign equality, territorial integrity, the prohibition of the unlawful use of force, and the obligation to settle international disputes through peaceful means. And it's the most important. And the United Nations Charter also reinforces international cooperation and collective responsibility for maintaining peace and security. Compliance with these principles is essential to prevent power from replacing law in international relations. And here, about sovereignty, civilian protection, and pathways to sustainable peace. Lebanese sovereignty requires the effective authority of the state through its territory and respect for its political independence. It also requires that external actors refrain from unlawful military incursions, cross-border attacks, and other actions incompatible with the United Nations Charter. And at the same time, the Lebanese state must strengthen its institutions and its capacity to guarantee security. Sustainable peace depends on restoring legitimate public authority and preventing national territory from becoming a permanent arena for regional confrontation. And the protection of civilians. International humanitarian law requires the parties to distinguish between civilians and combatants, and between civilian objects and military objectives. It also requires proportionality and all feasible precautions to reduce civilian harm during military operations. Hospitals, schools, essential infrastructure, humanitarian personnel, and displaced populations must receive effective protection. These obligations apply independently of political disagreements or claims concerning military necessity, because human dignity remains protected even during armed conflict. And international law provides the common language through which states can cooperate, limit the arbitrary exercise of power, and resolve disputes peacefully. However, its effectiveness also depends on international institutions capable of responding rapidly, impartially, and legitimately to contemporary crises. The United Nations must have more a representative, inclusive, transparent, effective, and accountable Security Council. It must also strengthen preventive diplomacy, mediation, peace building, and cooperation with the regional organizations to respond to new and interconnected regional challenges. And going to my final conclusion, from ceasefire to sustainable peace, a ceasefire is necessary to stop immediate violence, but it is not sufficient to remove the structural causes of conflict. Sustainable peace requires institutional strengthening, humanitarian reconstruction, accountability, regional dialogue, and guarantees for the security and dignity of all affected populations. Stronger early warning mechanisms, preventive diplomacy, and coordinated engagement with the regional actors can help transform temporary arrangements into lasting political solutions. And my final message is that the current crisis in Lebanon demonstrates that peace cannot be built through military force alone. International law remains indispensable because it establishes limits, protects civilians, preserves sovereignty, and creates legitimate pathways for negotiation and international cooperation. Nevertheless, law requires institutions and the political will to become effective. The United Nations, supported by responsible states and regional organizations, must place prevention, human dignity, and peaceful settlement at the center of the international response. And sustainable peace begins when the authority of law prevails over the logic of force. And my belief is law. Law must always prevail. Thank you so much. Here it's my address. I'm sorry if I was talkative, but I think it's very important because international law promotes peace, guarantee cooperation, and protect human rights. That's very important. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, dear professor. So I do have a question.
Yes.
So I do have a question. I know you are specialized in it, and it was really great at the presentation. So with your permission, the question is, it came from YouTube channel, and somebody from Latin America, for sure Latin America, because question it was addressed by pinpoint that was Brazil. How can Brazil, an experience of Latin America, because now Latin America facing the similar problems in Latin America, you know, they have not stable countries. And how can Brazil and Lebanon, as you mentioned, that they are more than around 10 million Lebanese are living in Brazil, how they can strengthen the business sector and the ordinary people, how they can cooperate, how can in legal education or research level they can help each other. What do we need to do, right? No, it's not write some legal paper, or maybe do we need to meet each other more and show the consolidation? Any idea?
Well, the question is very interesting because although Brazil is a part in another continent in South America, that's why I started saying about the bonds between Brazil and Lebanon, because our population, because as I said, 10 millions Brazilians are descendants of Lebanese. My university where I work, my dean is a Lebanese descendant. So my employer is from Lebanon roots. Well, I believe that education, I think the only way for humanity, for mankind, is education, because through education we can see the world in another lens, and before education it also implied dialogue, because we had a very keywords here, very important keywords here, like trust, respect. I would add good willing, curiosity, and also to educate people to know the unknown. Because when you don't know the other, you cannot understand. You cannot understand. And that's why I say that professors, scholars are bridge builders, because you can construct bridges between the cultures and between the countries. Because when I don't know, it's very easy to reject and to deny. But when you have a curiosity to know the unknown, the other, and understand that cultures, religions can have a coexistence in peace, the world is more cooperative. So it's education. I think I cannot see another way to modify the human being. It's through education. And of course, we have to have the international law, because mankind has and needs to live under the law. Because we have to know where I can go, what I can do, what I cannot do, what I have to respect. It's very important. I don't know if I'm clear, but that's it.
Thank you very much. It was a really great contribution to today's webinar. But I think I will better to live in the frame of the law, but what is not prohibited, we can use it. So
Yes.
directly what is not prohibited, but because if you will be under the law all the time, I'm talking with just pinpoint that under the law, so you're like a slavely, continue to do whatever they wanted to do, a thing to do in the book. But because the book who is writing this book? Human being. You are following for some rules, which is not sometimes really mandatory, because there sometimes is confrontation between two books in the government level. So in order to do some steps, we have to realize, is it correct? Because we have 1,000 truths, each of us have our own truth, each understanding. So I all the time assume, without assumption, we can't come to something great. It's from my perspective, it's my vision.
And yes, and it's interesting what you said, because in law, we have the positivism. The positivism is what you said. If law is written, you have to obey. But we have another stream in law that we call post-positivism, where you have law and moral, because moral has to be at the side of law, because law can permit you to do something that it is against the moral. We have some universal principles, for example, the right to life. Everyone have the right to have the life. And the law says it is permitted to kill. No, I'm not going to obey, because it's against my moral principles, because the right to life belongs to everyone. It's important to highlight this position. So I'm post-positivism, because we have principles, morals, charias that we have to obey.
Thank you very much for the correct points of this view. And we will move from Latin America. Just we are taking off from Latin America to the MENA region. Why? Because we are closer, and you know, the Cyprus, we are now all in Cyprus, and we are closer to the Middle East and MENA region. The MENA region plays a crucial role, and the expert in the countries, especially Egypt. So we speak and get some experience from the people and representative of the wonderful country. We have it before. If you are following our channel, we had one of the first series. It have been the Egypt, how we can bridge between Caucasia and Egypt, and the Silk Road agreements, and how we can work and open more. As the professor says that we are constructors. Yes, we construct. But I do hope this construction plan will not stay on the paper. So we try to we are building, we are constructing, we are planning, but like Professor Juan Carlos says, from theory for induction to induction, we have to come from the theory to the practice. Because we are scholars, not all of them. I don't want to put all experts in one basket, don't get me wrong, but we need to come from philosophy, at least to see reality, what's going on. We do need to try to implement, even though it's like you study new language. It's like me, and now I want to move to France, Italian, or this is my dream, to know more the language, even though I speak in 6, but I want to investigate how it is, because it's Latin, the Basque, Latin language is one of the families. And I will make mistake. I will make mistake, but I do not have to be when you scare, you will stuck in stagnation. You will say, oh, no, better I will study and read 10,000 books of the language barrier, how the Italian pronunciation, but without speaking, you will not learn no one language. You have to do mistakes, somebody will correct, and you will prove yourself more. This is how is building these new bridges. And we will move to our the next speaker, Dr. Muataz Abu Zaid. He's a judge, counselor, doctor in Egypt, and a legal scholar, legislative expert, lecturer, and specializing in administrative, human rights, democracy, government, international law, drafting, and international relations. I think I mentioned all your credentials, Dr. Muataz. If not, my apologizes. So the floor is yours.
Thank you, dear Ms. Christina, for your introduction. And of course, I'm very honored to participate in your great event today with respectable speakers, which I appreciate too much, and the points they discussed. And of course, this is another way, as I said before, to build a new type of diplomacy between our cultures and between our countries, and even between us as individuals, returning to our titles that we are talking through about the relation between peace building and law and diplomacy. And according to a certain philosophy that I believe in as my function as a judge, that the law is always the intermediate island or the intermediate road between diplomacy and between peacemaking. If I can explain this theory, as we imagine the law as a general rule can be applied, accepted from the society, discussed and declared and published for people, issued by a certain power of the society. So all these stages, we cannot deny that the law is a child of diplomacy, a child of plenty of thoughts, ethics, religions, previous rules, discussions between people, new visions and new opinions. And of course, after all these brainstorming between many cultures and between many thoughts, between many people, between many powers, this is the main principle of diplomacy. How to put all these different directions on one table, and how to reach one goal in at last, which is the new product that we called law. So after having law, or after issuing law, we will have, or we will use this tool to solve disputes, to organize society, to issue more rules, and to ensure this direction, to make these rules that organize the society. And of course, this is the first point, or the simple way of the peace building meaning. So if we can begin the journey of issuing law with discussions in a certain way of diplomacy, so we can terminate with the law at the end with a new road or a new vision of peacemaking according to this law. So we cannot differentiate, or we cannot separate between the process of diplomacy and the issuing of law and the peacekeeping. You can find this relation very clear and very effective in some fields like human rights, like international conventions, issuing the rules of international law. Of course, it's a very big field to discuss opinions, to meet many parties, to present many cultures. But on the other hand, many other fields of law, like internal law, like specified laws produced by or issued by parliaments, of course, the space for diplomacy or negotiations will be less. It may not be very obvious, but we cannot deny that it's existed. So these three stages: first, diplomacy; second, issuing of law; and third, the peace building, is a very connected series that we must notice in every function for the rule of law, even it's big or large or noticed, or even it cannot be noticed, but it's existed. So we must invest this important rule of law, ensuring the talents and the abilities of negotiations and discussions in the beginning, and how to support the abilities or the powers of people and institutions go through this process of diplomacy or negotiations. And after that, we must also improve the abilities of institutions that will perform this rule of law to achieve or to reach this stage of peacemaking or peace building, as it is the main function of law or the main goal to terminate this process with. According to this philosophy, as I said, we can explain or we can discuss the first point or the first type of dispute resolution, which is litigation inside courts before going through arbitration, mediation, or conciliation, or any other alternative resolution dispute, any other alternative dispute resolution systems. The litigation or going to solve the disputes in courts depends on these stages or depends on this philosophy, how to reach the first thoughts or the first principles of the legislator to apply this rule in a right way, aiming or looking for solving this dispute or to finish or terminate this dispute. This will reflect the way that the judge may think. On the other hand, if we are talking about another one who is responsible to solve a dispute, like an arbitrator, like a mediator, he will also have the same view, but he will concentrate on another function beside applying law, not as a judge, but he will focus on negotiations. He will focus on mediation. He will focus on listening. He will focus on expressing or presenting more cultures and more thoughts. But the whole process or the whole image will be to have or to begin with diplomacy and to initiate my rule and then to use this rule to peace building. So it's a series that we must respect and we must always save its connection to reach our final goal at last by using the tool of this rule and of course enhancing the talents of negotiation and mediation, reaching the goal of dispute resolution. Thank you. I'm sorry for talking a lot.
Thank you very much. I will just tell you something to make a bit fun because to be too serious, it's as Baron Munchausen says, sons, please smile, because too serious people are doing too much damages for our planet. So to be too serious not all the time is good. However, I want to just say that you are again one of the last speaker, and you think it's coming as a tradition in our series. The doctor, you are closing. I will just say, just brilliantly closing the series. And all the time it's happening.
It's a pleasure always.
So, I will just have a decoration. It's from YouTube channel. Okay, you did, dear doctor, you did comparison between the judge coordination, legislation, and diplomacy. But what is our main topic? what is the Egypt experience? And we know that Egypt has is one of the present Arab League representative, and they have a lot of diplomats who are working in trying to prevent the conflicts in the MENA region and the Middle East. What Egypt can advise, piece of advice, what the lessons may be used for Lebanon from Egypt. Let's construct, let's say the professor says that let's reconstruct and give some plan for Lebanese experts and Lebanese representative, the business sector, the ordinary people, the individuals, and all of the people around who just escaped the war. Please, your division is the government, you present, you are a judge, you're in now working on government of the Egypt. How do you think? How can Lebanon is the strengthen, and what kind of lessons they have to learn? What your advice to state institutions?
It cannot be considered as an advice, because I think that Lebanese must advise us all. It's a very important country in the MENA region. Of course, it had a very, very long history of international relations, especially with us, since the pharaonic civilization and the Phoenicians in Lebanon. And of course, we had a long history of commercial and political and social exchange between the two civilizations. Of course, even during the present time, Lebanon passed through many disputes, even on the international field or internally inside Lebanon. They had problems for many political parties struggling, plenty of religions or directions of religions existed in Lebanon. Of course, the location of this country imposed some disputes between the country and another neighbor countries or another locations around these borders of Lebanon. Of course, according to all these circumstances or all these cases, I think Lebanon tried a lot of ways to solve these disputes. And of course, it's clear that they are insisting on the peaceful way, the way of negotiations. They achieved an agreement, which was called the Ta'if Agreement, that imposed a certain state of stability inside the country between political parties. They reached many international conventions between other countries to stop struggle or military actions or military disputes with other countries, even inside Lebanon itself, between the categories of the society or between different directions, ethnic or religious or social. So I think Lebanon can present an example for mediation, for a very strong sense of diplomacy, but it may come somehow or somehow late or delayed after many disputes or after many injuries or wounds or loss. But I think they had the sense of this diplomacy. The point I must mention in the special case of Lebanon, that unification of these plenty of thoughts and plenty of religions and plenty of political directions must be invested not in disputes, not in new struggles, but in how to unify or how to look to the public interest of this country, how to overcome these differentiations and invest all these thoughts to a certain or a new way of diplomacy that I can release new solutions suitable for these disputes, and of course can be easily applied by all parties, even by individual, even by government, because the government only cannot solve these disputes unless there is a very high push from the people and from the parties of these disputes in this country.
Thank you very much, dear Dr. Moataz. So this was our just regional webinar edition Lebanon. I would like to say thank you for our speakers who struggling to attend, especially because of the Mr. Peter Elias Ajram. I will just mention Noemi Araceli Perez because she struggled as well. We want to say thank you to Mr. Charbel because he tried to attend 2 times. I accepted in Lebanon is now not good connections with network. Miss Lama Audi, Mr. Antonio Zohbi, and Miss Patricia. So thank you for your effort, and we understand fully that you are struggling and you tried to do your best. So to conclude our today's message, I will just say that we have questions. I will conclude, but before that, I will share some questions. Please switch on the cameras who able to do that. I have a question to Mr. Dr. Rafi. We have a question to you from the YouTube. Let me address you some questions, okay? Because your topic, I think it was so meaningful, and they ask, what do you think what exactly by point, one by one? They want some agenda. As I understood, the people need agenda. The business sector wants some kind of agenda in order to follow. Okay, they say, you are an expert. You came to speak. Okay, you speak very well. But okay, how can we implement it? How what you said can come to the force? Okay, you give us a construction plan. How can we do that? How can we implement that? Any suggestion, let's say first, second, third, even it will be one in the number one, but it can be useful for the business sector, anything. So, and the second question is the same, but I will just mix them together. Your practical recommendations for to help the government, as I said, and what kind of international cooperation, as Mr. Luis mentioned, that EU can help with regulations, what kind of challenges the Lebanese can face with this? Please.
Thank you very much. These are also very valuable questions. Regarding the first one, the action plan, how can we implement what we're saying? I know we have lots of challenges, and all of us might say, who am I to change, or I'm one person. Actually, that is really wrong, because or inaccurate, because usually the general policies are built on advocacy. So if each one of us advocates the peaceful dispute resolution and supports, for example, the government's and the president's approach of solving our disputes amicably and retraining our sovereignty amicably, that will be a very great step. The actual steps that we could do is increase the number of awareness workshops, the advocacy, writings, readings, because we need to change the public identity in which it shows from the outside that we are advocating war and disputes, where in fact, no, we are advocating peace and settlements and legal settlements in order to sustain a future and continuous and sustainable peace identity of our country. That's regarding the first question. Regarding the second question, we have an umbrella in the world, which is the United Nations. We need to believe that this umbrella is, for example, the groups such as Hezbollah or the countries such as Israel believed in applying the decisions of the UN then I don't think we would have reached to disputes. But the idea is about their interest. It's the idea is about their what do they need, what do they obtain, what do they aim. So their interest is not in peaceful settlements, because they also have their agenda. We have our agenda of peaceful settlements, and they have their agenda of oil and gas and money and sovereignty and Iranian agenda and occupying and from Israel part. So all of them have their own agenda and their own profit and loss calculations. While our own profit and loss calculation is the life of people, the life of civilians, the sustainable peace. That's what we want. So we want our opinion to prevail over their opinion, at least in order to gather as much as possible advocacy to our cause.
Thank you very much. It was really the pointed answer on the pointed question. So I do believe all distinguished speakers, all of the Professor Daida, Professor Juan Carlos, Mr. Roland Abujay, Mr. Rafik, doctor, we want to congratulate because you will
Thank you
defeat
very much.
I want to mention that because I do believe this will come to this history and will be part of our webinar. Our Mr. Rafik will defeat his thesis next week, and we want to congratulate and support him. So Miss Brenda, I know she's now, she contacting from Mexico. And our guests from an audience in YouTube, from YouTube channel, thanks for your time, for your dedication. And I want to just close. It was brilliant answers. They have more questions. So if you allow me, I will just transfer by email or just through Mr. Roland some questions to others. And Mr. Rajamar, send me some presentations. If you are interested, I can share this presentation with you. So, distinguished speakers, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, all participants, and we are conclude our today IAMPE webinar dedicated to Lebanon. I would like to express my sincere gratitude to every speaker for sharing your knowledge, your professional expertise, your golden resource, time, because to connect is too important. You show respect not only to us, but first of all, you represent yourself as a high-level person. Today's discussion has shown that the Lebanon challenges cannot be viewed through the lens of like only one discipline, from only one national perspective. The sustainable progress and requires not only law, international law or diplomacy or IDR tools, and it's have to be combination for each of the point, the education, economic resilience, the law, the business society, humanitarian responsibility, the government help as well, and for each of the Lebanese as well. We have heard perspective from different continents and the different region, from Brazil, Egypt. We heard from Cyprus, which is closer, and the wider international professional community. Although these experiences are different, they are connected by one central idea. Societies become stronger when they build institutions, protect human dignity, invest in dialogue, and transform international cooperation into practical action. So we are moving from theory to practice. I think enough is enough. I will just say like that. So we can speak a lot, but we need to move to practice. At least we will do mistakes. Somebody will say, oh, I told you, don't do that, because if something will go wrong. But if someone will not do, you have to ask yourself, if not me, then who? So if you will not from yourself, nobody will start. It's how is working human psychology. I would like also thank our audience for your presence, your questions, your commitment to the dialogue, your time, because I know we are Saturday and everybody want to run, especially in the place to enjoy with the families. I want to say thank you to your family members. Just take this 1 second, say thank you to your spouses, for your children, for your even employees, for everybody, because they are part of our webinar. On behalf of IAMPE, I reaffirm our readiness to continue building professional bridges. We can help. How we can help? We can support with webinars, or maybe we can build to write any agreements to bring that to the table. You can use our platform to come to the peace, where experts from different countries can work together. And I promise that I will be intermediate. I will call just like we do mediator diplomat in this case. So peace not simply the absence of the conflict. Peace is continuous, professional, and human responsibility. Thank you very much and have a wonderful weekend. If somebody wants to share, please, you can give the last words.
Thank you so much. It's also a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you. It's a pleasure meeting you. Dayuton, TAJ, advisor. Thank you, Christine. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank
As
you.
I was remembering now, John Lennon. You may say I'm a dreamer, but I'm not the only one. We are together. Thank you very much.
Sure.
Bye-bye.
Sure. Thank you very much, and see you next time.
Of course. Bye-bye. Bye-bye, Fred.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this very kind opportunity to be here.
Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Mr. Roland. Thank you, Mr. Rafik.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Miss Brenda.